Hey everyone, my name is KryptoCal, and welcome to the next episode of All the Mods 9, GregTech Gauntlet. And before we get started with this episode, I have a little bit of housekeeping to get out of the way. First of all, as you can see, we are playing in shaders for the first time. In an episode, we are using shaders, and I think I am going to try and use shaders from here on out. So if you do have opinions on this, let me know in the comments. I do want to hear what everyone thinks, but I recently just built a brand new computer for myself. Editor Cal, throw up a picture of the PC here. What do you think? Do you like it? I like it. Because of that, I can now run shaders at a reasonable frame rate even while I'm recording. So I was thinking of maybe giving it a try. Unfortunately, in the midst of getting all of my computer reconfigured and reset up and everything, I lost all of my OBS filter settings, and so the audio might be a little different than what you're used to. I will be tweaking it over the course of a few episodes again, just to kind of get it back to where I want it. So hopefully it sounds okay, but if not, just know that I am aware of it and I'm working on it. I also went ahead in between episodes here and I've actually added a bunch more P2Ps to our controller here. Basically what I've done is I've made it so that all of these are sending a full 32 channels worth of P2Ps to all wings. So now we have a full 32 going up and being transmitted through this one wireless connector, which is going to be super helpful for future base expansion, which is going to be coming very soon. But with all that being said, I hope you all enjoy this episode, and let's get ourselves right back into some GregTech. So what is going to be our plan for today? Our ultimate goal over the next couple episodes is going to be getting to the next tier of circuit, as it always is, which is going to be our first EV tier circuit. But to get there, we have to make the microprocessor assembly, which requires us to get the final tier of MV circuit as well. But what this recipe unlocks is the ability to make use of other materials here to make this even more efficient. And those are called the SMD resistors, transistors, and capacitors, as well as the SMD diodes and the inductors later on. All the SMD resources do is provide you with much higher outputs for very similar amounts of resources. This recipe right here gives us 32 resistors for the price of just 4 tantalum wire and 1 carbon dust. So we're going to have to get carbon dust and then the fine tantalum wire. Tantalum we have being made by one of our bees.
We're not getting tantalum dust. We're getting tantalum, the chemical, like the element.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's being processed to become the dust from ChemLab. And then the ChemLab stuff is being sent over, and it's equally usable for us.
Double netherite furnace is wild. You're wild for that, but anyway.
Thanks!
Let's go ahead and get all this going, because we got lots of work to do. Lots of things to set up.
I think we need to take an adventure back to the overworld.
Huh?
Cal,
Oh no. And after not spending like 30 minutes of clearing out combs later, this is where the tantalum bees are set up.
Note for others, don't let yourselves run out of power without realizing it.
Which is impressive considering we have an infinite energy cube.
We have creative energy, and I don't know how that happened. This is the tantalum dust, and so all the element is coming in here, being compacted, and then being sent over into this drawer. This drawer is being imported into the Greg dimension as well, so all this stuff is ending up gradually in Greg.
So all that being said, the SMD versions of these materials just are much cheaper and give us a lot higher outputs. So we're going to want to make sure that we have all of these being made automatically, because once we start scaling up our production of these microprocessors and eventually the higher tier circuits, we're going to want to have a very strong backend here to support all of that production.
I have one question though. Are we currently importing graphite into the system?
Oh yes, we are. We have like 5.2 million graphite.
Oh, we're set. Okay, so we can actually use that with the electrolyzer to get the carbon. You better believe that's how we're getting carbon.
Yeah, you get like 4 per. We have enough for like 20 million carbon here. Another one that's going to be really important is the SMD capacitor, and this requires us to have tantalum foil, which we are producing already, and also the thin polyvinyl chloride sheets. That can actually be made using the other PVC sheets that we already have. Yeah, so we have, it looks like 157,000 PVC sheets from ChemLab, the bees cook.
Yes, they really do.
So 5 machines here, 5 resources that we're going to be making. However, some of these are going to require HV, and there we go. I guess that's probably one of our first HV assemblers though.
The carbon is now being produced.
And with 5 HV assemblers, we can now place these on down. Don't they look beautiful? Ooh. I actually like the HV machines a lot, and we can give all of these some power. Now, what is the HV cable? The silver cable will probably be enough, 8 amps, considering most machines take like less than 1 amp. So currently we have a recipe for 2 times silver wire. I guess we can also add in the recipe for like 4, 8, and 16. All right, so our first recipe is going to be this recipe for the SMD transistor, which is going to take gallium foil, fine tantalum wire, and liquid polyethylene. And there we go. So we have a huge amount of transistors being produced.
All I know is that we're really going to need the polyethylene.
Yeah, we're going to have to definitely up our polyethylene rates. So we've decided that we're going to increase our polyethylene production before it ends up becoming a problem. We've been doing a little bit of number crunching, and we've determined a pretty good idea of how to get some more of this stuff. Now we could just scale up our original system, which is just over on the MV wing here. As you remember, we have our polyethylene being made over in this side, and it's using the plant balls and the biomass to turn into ethanol, and then ethanol with the sulfuric acid makes 1 bucket of the ethylene. However, the plan that we have for this other setup is going to involve using something called glycerol. Glycerol can be made inside of the chemical reactor, and the way that we're going to end up doing this is by using fish oil and ethanol. Ethanol we are making already over here, which we can make another setup very similar to this to make more of it. But also the fish oil can be made by just extracting, well, fish. And we're going to get 70 millibuckets per tropical fish that we extract. And the sodium hydroxide is not going to be an issue at all, because what we can do is just use some salt water. If we electrolyze salt water, we get 3 sodium hydroxide dust. And we only need a tiny pile every time it produces, so having 3 every time here is going to be more than sufficient. But salt water can be actually obtained by just mixing water and salt. And we can actually produce salt by using some salty bees, and they produce the mechanism salt, which is valid for this recipe. So we're going to be able to get tons and tons of salt water, no problem. A really cool byproduct as well for this is going to be chlorine and hydrogen. So every time this produces, we can store the chlorine and hydrogen inside of some discs. But considering every time we want to produce 1 bucket of glycerol, it's going to take 6 buckets of fish oil. We're going to have to produce quite a bit of fish oil to keep up with the rates that we're going to need. And I've done a little bit of number crunching, and that number exactly is going to be 9 fish per second.
Fish per second!
Whenever somebody says FPS, they're not talking about frames in a computer. They're definitely talking about fish per second. And you may be wondering, Cal, how are you going to get that many tropical fish? 9 fish a second? Well, unfortunately, this is currently our plan.
Unfortunately? What do you mean?
Well, for the fish.
Oh, I suppose so.
So hopefully that's going to be able to keep up with the rates. We're going to keep an eye on it just by keeping an eye on how our tropical fish supply is holding up. We have quite a bit of backlog already here. We do have 30,500 tropical fish. But all that being said, we're going to just go ahead and throw that setup together just to increase our polyethylene production. And then we're going to get on with some more HV progression. As of now, this is very similar to the last setup that we made over in MV. We are producing the biochaff. If we actually use a multi-block called the pyrolyze oven, we can turn 4 biochaff into 5 buckets of biomass. And it takes about the same amount of time, even a little bit faster, because we are going to be using HV speeds because we are using 2 MV energy hatches. So this is going to be running quite quickly. And this is going to be able to support quite a bit more biomass than our previous setup did. And just like that, we have a working pyrolyzed oven, and it is at the HV speed. So it's going to be really, really great. I hear it working. It's doing something. Yes, 5 buckets of biomass every time. That's awesome. Let's place this down very carefully beside this machine. Okay, so our advanced macerator is going. And now that this is an HV machine, this actually has the chance to produce multiple outputs because all of that is locked behind HV. That's actually going to be awesome because that's going to basically double our biochaff and then also further increase it with an extra 50% chance here and even a 25% chance for a 4th one. Okay, last thing we have to do now is basically get the output, which is going to be our biomass fluid. And we can either put this right into applied energistics and store it separately, or we can send it directly over to the distillery where it will then be turned into ethanol. And this is really fast. We can run one of these at MV. This should be no problem at all. And this will make all the ethanol we could possibly want. I don't see a reason to put the biomass back into applied energistics. All right, distillery can go right there. What we can actually use is an entangled block. We haven't used one of these in a while, so I figure, hey, let's make use of an entangled block. Put this down right there. And we'll select this output hatch and just put it right there. Set this to import, and there we go. And that is a pretty decently compact little setup. It looks very similar to the other setup over here, but is going to be giving us quite a bit more ethanol. So now that we have the biomass and the ethanol being created, let's push on and let's keep making all those chemicals. But before I get back to polyethylene, Grace wants to do some yapping.
I'm yapping. So for the inductor, which is the last component we need, in addition to like the diode, the capacitor, the transistor, and the resistor, we need the ferrite mixture in order to make the ferrite mixture rings, which are used to make the inductor. And we're not just going to make the normal inductor. Nay. We will be making the SMD inductors because they're more efficient with our resources, and we have the tantalum wire. This machine makes the nickel ferrite rings, basically. I haven't gotten any of the rings yet because Cal got mad at me for adding an extra EBF to the stainless steel setup.
It's just not symmetrical. It's just...
I was gonna add another one. Goodness. Basically, all that to say, we're gonna be getting the rings. They're gonna be stored in here. The ingots aren't actually used for anything else, so we're not gonna store the ingots. We're just gonna make them straight into the rings.
All right, so now that we're getting close to having all the SMD materials up and running, I gotta get that polyethylene online, so let's go do it. And here it is, the finished setup for liquid polyethylene. I have the other setup still running just to add to the overall production, but I think this is going to be quite a bit faster. We're squishing a lot of fish, but with all that being said, if we come over here and take a look at MV one more time, we should have all of these up and running now. So we have our SMD inductors with the nickel zinc ferrite and the tantalum wire. We have a lot of these already backed up fully, so these are all basically maxed out to 2000, and we're going to make use of these still today in this episode because we're going to use these now to make the next part of the quest. And that is going to be making the microprocessor, which is the final MV circuit. And while this isn't maybe going to provide us with a lot of bonuses in terms of overall output of these tiers, we do require these ones to make the next tier of HV circuits. And going forward, these are going to be able to be made even more efficiently by putting this inside of a clean room. So the last thing that we really have to get before we can make the microprocessors here is the plastic printed circuit board. And this is made inside of the chemical reactor using plastic circuit boards, copper foil, and then either iron 3 chloride or sodium persulfate. Our easiest one that we have access to right now is sodium persulfate. All we have to do is electrolyze some sodium bisulfate, which we actually have a stock of the ChemLib version of this. We have this stuff over in the overworld, I believe, being made with these 4 elements. So we're basically stocking a bunch of this stuff. And if you take a look at our storage, sodium bisulfate is in our storage right now. The only other thing that we have to do is make sure we are passiving the plastic circuit boards, which again are made inside of a chemical reactor with the PVC sheets, copper foil, and sulfuric acid. And just to make it easier on myself, I think it might be easier just to have the sulfuric acid accessible in our system. And then it's much easier to send all over the place just using exporters and stuff. And what I'm realizing is we're gonna need a lot more ME drives. Let's just craft up like 20 of them. These can also be made into the extended versions as well. So while I'm actually thinking about that, let's put that pattern in and we'll throw that in as well. I've never actually used these before, so I think these just have double the capacity and they just take the same amount of channels. So I think it just overall just saves you on a lot of channels, which is awesome. We'll definitely do at least 12 like that. That should be totally fine. So those are all online now. We have got lots of space over there now for plenty of fluid disks in the future. Speaking of fluid disk, let's go ahead and grab a 1K disk out here. And the reason I'm only using a 1K storage cell is they actually hold way more fluid than you expect. And for some things, we aren't going to want to buffer that much fluid. So having just a 1K for certain things is actually going to be pretty good. So I'll probably end up just having sulfuric acid in this 1K drive here. If I just go ahead and craft one of these up. Yeah, so quite simply, I just have a entangler porter underneath here, feeding the sulfuric acid gas up into the condensator, turning it into the fluid version, and then once it's there, it is then imported into our system. I have that many buckets of sulfuric acid in the system. It's only using 39 out of the 1024 bytes. It's very efficient in how it actually handles fluid storage. It might only seem like it'll handle 1,000 buckets, but it's not actually exactly how it works. The byte system is a little different with these fluid cells, and it's actually really cool. What's the circuit assembler doing?
Nothing.
No, you lie.
Nothing.
All right, I have 2 of these chemical reactors running here. I had to change these out to HV because we had to have them running a little bit faster to keep up with the rates, because behind me, Grace is setting up some circuit assemblers to actually produce the microprocessor and the microprocessor assembly. This one up here is going to be making the microprocessors. It actually makes these twice as fast as the assemblies get made. This takes 20 seconds to be made, and 2 of these take 10 seconds to be made. So overall, we're going to have these basically all being turned into the assembly versions until this drawer here fills up with them. And then after that, it'll buffer in this drawer beside, and that should be plenty of processors, at least to get started off here. Oh, actually, we're not going to have enough of these circuit boards. I didn't realize they were also used in the microprocessor recipe. Okay, after a quick detour, changed these to be HV, and I doubled them, so now we should have enough speed to keep up with our circuits back here. And we have the microprocessor assembly.
All that's left to do now is make the clean room so we can make the microprocessor supercomputer.
A clean room is kind of scary. I don't know. It seems scary, but I don't think it's scary, but it seems scary. So the question is where are we going to set up the clean room?
I'd say let's start small in this room, put it in the room that we already have built.
We could slap it in beside my pyrolyzed oven. There is enough space here.
I'm currently making up some of the parts we need.
I'm going to put them all on AutoCraft because we're going to be making these in the future. Also, there's something called Plascrete. That is what actually the clean room walls are made of. And it requires a steel frame, liquid concrete, which we haven't made yet, and then also polyethylene sheets. So the sheets are easy. We can set that up. Liquid concrete, we do have to have that. Looks like we can make that by combining stone dust, marble dust, and gypsum dust in a mixer. Is there a better way to do this? Clay dust and stone dust sounds easier.
That sounds a lot easier.
Let's run that one instead.
We're going to do the one we have in excess.
I don't think the Plascrete is going to be something that we have to have like coming in super fast. It's just going to be one of those things that we're going to want on demand when we need it. You need to have an energy hatch, a maintenance hatch. So we're gonna get ourselves cleaned up a little bit, do a little bit of organizing, and then when we come back, we'll go ahead and build our very first clean room where we can then get our very first EV circuit. I'm excited. The next tier is fast approaching. All right, let's try and set this clean room up. I looked ahead at the multi-block info a little bit here, and I have a basic idea of how this thing is supposed to look. I know that we are going to be making the smallest one just to start off. So the smallest one is a 5x5, and it's kind of framed out by using these Plascrete blocks. We do have to provide this with some power, and it also has to have a maintenance hatch. So we'll knock out these 2 back spots here. All right, if I'm not mistaken here, this is where the clean room block has to be. So if we knock all this out, can I use the terminal and click on this? Oh, it worked. Kinda. Maybe the door can go on the side here. Oh, okay. We have a clean room. It's contaminated, but we have a clean room.
I don't like that.
So now if I give this some power, I think theoretically this should start to clean itself. I say theoretically because I really don't know.
So in there, we have to be able to use the circuit assembler, right?
Yes.
So let's make a circuit assembler at least. We can actually start making the thing.
We're clean.
Like this.
So yeah, you gotta place that thing down right on top of that. Boom.
Boom. Look at that. Circuit assembler.
You know how we could get applied logistics in here to make it a little easier?
The pass-through hatch?
Or to get around this whole thing, we could bring a wireless connector from applied logistics in here. Thoughts? Do you remember the motto of this series, Grace? Use everything at our disposal to make this as easy and painless as possible.
So we'll do this wirelessly this time, and next time we're gonna do it legit, okay?
I don't know what you're talking about. This is legit.
Because this is the first baby clean room. When we get actually to like the mommy clean room, that's when we're gonna actually do this for real.
And then we'll put an interface down like this. So now we can keep all the items we want to in stock here. So to make the EV circuit, let's just pin that really quick. Oh, now it's working. What? I had to keep more than 64 in stock in the interface. For some reason, it wasn't pulling things out.
Odd. Okay.
Which is really weird. But anyway, it's working now. Okay, here it is.
It's assembling.
The first EV circuit is coming.
Yes, it's assembling. Oh, it's gone.
I got it.
You took it. How could you? Gib. Oh,
we did it. The first EV circuit. It's ours. And then we'll just put that there. There we go. Well, I think that's a good place to call it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I really hope you did enjoy. If you did enjoy, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to join the Discord. The link is in the description down below. But that's it for me, everybody. I hope you all have a good one, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye.